Introducing the entirely new 2001 Aurora by Oldsmobile.
I made a purchase because there are things wrong with the Oldsmobile, the Aurora. And so I bought a set of service manuals, factory service manuals. Hopefully they have everything I need. Now this one here is just devoted to engine. Hopefully I never need that one. This one is body and accessories and restraints, but it includes the transmission. So hopefully I never need the transmission part. But I know I will need, and I marked some pages here, some information, some service information out of both of these books. My current issues that I want to resolve quickly are the temperature never gets warm on the driver's side, and I can never get the blend. I can never get air to come out of the vents on the dash. It will go up to the defroster and it will go down to the floor, but it won't go anywhere in between. So I looked in the table of contents for this, and both of these actuators are right near each other. In fact, the instructions for replacing the blend actuator says take out the temperature actuator first. So here's, they call it mode actuator. Sorry, not blend actuator. So, as I said here, it says remove the left air temperature actuator, which I know I need to do. And then remove the mode actuator retaining screws and just pull the mode actuator out, which is somewhere in here, and it moves and adjusts things. Although I guess one of the things I will check first will be whether or not it's moving to that position, and maybe there's a problem with the door. So we'll do some sleuthing. I'm assuming the scenario is it just won't go to that position, which I guess in hindsight seems a little strange. Here are the instructions for the air temperature actuator replacement. It says remove the left side sound insulator, which comes from page 8604 in this manual. I go to 8604, which is the second bookmark, and it's this panel here. Remove the fasteners securing, so we'll get into that. Then it says remove the knee bolster, which is on the next page. Knee bolster says remove this end cap and then remove this knee bolster here. Then the next set of instructions are remove the instrument panel module, which is this one here. Instrument panel module says remove the insulator, which we've done. Then that'll expose two fasteners, which are here, and take those out, and then rotate this IPM, which I gather is this kind of somewhat bolted thing. I guess also obviously need to unplug it. It says disconnect the electrical connectors after you rotate it up and out of the instrument panel retainer. All right, so once that's done, then I can come back here. That exposes screws and connectors that get removed. This is the air actuator here. This very well may be the blend or the mode actuator. We'll see. Insulation is just the reverse. So thankfully, when I'm in there, it'll be both those things. So I have to wait for a day where it's not raining, because the car is too big to fit in my garage as it stands today. So we'll come back to that. But these manuals will be very handy in keeping my Aurora working right and on the road. Well, it took some doing in terms of clearing out more space on the garage floor, especially along this wall. I had the engine to the Lakewood. It's now sitting back in front of my set of cubbies there. But it freed up enough space that I can pull the Oldsmobile as far over as possible, and it frees up a good amount of space over here. The unfortunate thing is I can't, in fact, I can open the door all the way. Excellent. That provides me access to that area where I will be moving on to changing the actuators and hopefully fixing the heating issues. Alright, so we're trying to remove this panel here, and there are some screws tucked up under here. I guess it would be those right there and opposite. So I'll take those out, and that should remove this panel here. So it was 2 screws, which I took one out with a Phillips head. The other one, whatever retaining nut on the inside was moving, so it took a 7mm socket, and then I used my trim retainer tool, and this came out from over at this end here. Now I have to disconnect this one lead to a light, and there appears to be something else over there, and then the panel will be free. So the manual says in order to remove this, quarter turn counterclockwise. And sure enough, the temperature sensor for the heating system comes out. It says to disconnect that, which I did, and out comes the panel. Alright, the next direction is remove the knee bolster under here, but in order to do that, the first thing you need to do is remove this, what they call the IP end cap. So it said go in and pry at the rear edge, and there are 3 retaining clips, 1, 2, 3. Once that's done, they say, yep, just pull rearward, and it releases it. So that is off, and over there. Now back to the directions to see what comes next. So they said remove this ashtray thing, and then they said after that's out, you just start, there's a whole bunch of retainers, and you just start very carefully pulling away at probably this rear edge, and then the whole thing will pull back. All right, whole lot of it. Retainers, no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they all just snapped out very easily by starting and just pulling down here, and then those trailing arm hooks go in here, and hold the rear end. So let's see what the instructions say next. So the next thing they say is to remove this instrument panel module there, also shown up in there. It's got cables running to it on the end. This is the underside of it here from what I can tell, and that behind is the actual actuator that I'm hunting for. So there's a screw on a bottom corner. I need to find it and remove it, and then it should rotate out of the way, it says. Alright, so right now air temperature is set high. Air temperature set at 79. If I look at the actuator here, as I turn, or I'm pushing down, making it go colder. Alright, there it goes, it's moving. So, sadly, that tells me the issue is not with the actuator, but with, and I'm going back up now, so we'll follow it. And there it goes. The issue is with the door. There's a door that this actuator controls. I don't know if I can aim it to where you can see it. Okay. there is where the screw went in, and up above it, that silver post sticking out, is the door actuator. And I don't know if I was able to. You can feel the air coming out here. I rotated it. I'm gonna, I guess, open up the garage door, turn the car on, see if I can get any heat out of that vent now. Alright, engine's been running a little while. It's not come up to normal running, which is the center one more bar up, but it's up enough that there's warm coolant going through. When I manually have turned the blend door, stick my hand up here and it's nice warm air coming out, thankfully. When I go to the other side, stick my hand down there, it's the same temperature. So it could be that this actuator is not turning far enough. I'm not sure why it wasn't working. I'm gonna turn the car off, hold it back in place, and see how it functions now. So we have the original, or at least the one I just pulled out. We have the replacement. I plugged the replacement in and went through from full cold to full warm. It did rotate and went back again and got rotation again. So what I'm looking at here is that this little notch is just to the left of that little line. And the same thing here. Flipping them over and looking at the orientation of the flat, they both appear to be parallel with each other. So they both would have done the same thing. It doesn't explain why when the blend door rod is rotated to the warm position, which in this case, looking at it, is full clockwise from everything I can tell. The flat is oriented finger on it again, way up here. All right, so the flat appears to be oriented almost straight up and down. So if that's the case, and we hold this in its installed position, which I believe is roughly like that, and we look at the front end, we say that it too is basically straight up and down. So I'm not sure why this wasn't working before. It seems to be working now. I guess I could install it, but the next thing I want to do though is move on to the mode actuator, and part of the replacing the mode actuator is pulling out the blend actuator. So move these out of the way, get the manual where I need it to be, and begin the mode actuator replacement. So before I went any farther with this installation, I decided, well, to figure out exactly where those screws are, I'll look at the replacement. Well, unfortunately, the replacement is not what I expected. The replacement is, even though it had a different part number and it said it was different, it was just another air temperature blend door actuator. So I am not sure. I guess I can do some sleuthing back in here at least to see what if I can figure it out. It may very well be something very high up in here. I think I have my hands on it. It would be interesting if it was actually the same part number. It just behaved differently. I don't know. I'll get the two out and compare some more. Okay, the mode actuator, the replacement is installed against the wheel, but not back in its location. But I thought I would watch with it plugged in what would happen if. So we turn it, it goes around. That is on the middle vents. This is split middle and lower. It rotates. The next one is split just to the feet. It moves. And I go to split between feet and defroster. And finally defroster only. So I'm going back to where it was set when I turned the car off, which is to the face, because I haven't touched any of the portions under the dash that are actuated by this. So I'm going to turn the car off, and I believe it goes to a, well, I was going to say, I thought it went to a rest position. So we'll see if it slides back into its location, which is, yeah, definitely tucked back up in there. Yeah, you really can't see it. There's a number of doors that are actuated. See, they've got different grooves here. Obviously, as it rotates, it puts each of the 3 doors into different positions. First attempt at making this work was a fail. I put this wheel on where I thought it needed to be to actuate the 3 different doors. Everything seemed to fall into place. I put the actuator on, screwed it down, plugged it in, and regardless of where I had the switch, it was blowing out of all 3 openings. So now I will just install this, attempt to rotate it to different positions and see what happens on the dash in terms of where does air go. And then I'll put it in a known position. I will plug in the actuator, turn it to the same known position, in other words, all defrost, and see where the knob, where the hub of the motor lines up with its flats relative to the flats on this wheel. So first things first is I put some grease in the 3 different tracks or grooves of the wheel, and now we'll install it and see if we can make things change on the dash when air is flowing. So the wheel right in front of you there has to be set up so that all of the 3 white actuators, plastic actuators, are timed. They have pegs at the end that have to fit into those grooves. And I thought I had it a couple of times, but it wouldn't turn far enough. So now, with it currently installed, and I had to turn what I thought was the defroster all the way off, and then turn what I thought was the mode for the vents all the way forward. Anyway, I can get a significant amount of turns out of it, and I've tried different positions on the wheel, and thankfully everything seems to be going in the modes. As I rotate it, it follows the different modes that are on the wheel there. So fully clockwise is vent only. I'll verify that. I just turned it fully clockwise. So yes, I have vent only. And then as I rotate it, it goes to mix. I have very little coming out of the floor. As I rotate it, I get more coming out of the floor with none out of the defroster. And when I continue rotating it, the vent goes away. It's just floor. And then we get some defroster, and all the way it is only defroster. So I'm putting it back to the initial just vents position. I'm going to climb underneath there. Here is the actuator. There are the flats. I'm going to plug it in and see which way those flats end up. There are the flats. With it plugged in and the selector being on vent only there. So with everything turned off, let's see, I'll rephrase that. With the HVAC system turned off, that wheel is pointing, if I hold it like this, we'll say it's pointing at 1 o'clock, kind of in line with the cutouts. If I turn it now to just vent, this rotates back so that it is at, we'll call it 10:30. If I now send it all the way to defroster, it continues to rotate around until it's all the way at 3 o'clock. Again, holding it between those two screw holes. So I will turn it back to the position of having just vents, which is where I'm at. And as you see, it rotates now back to that 10:30 position. If I turn the car off now, sorry for the beeping, it stays at 10:30. So that's when I'm going to try to line up and then install the motor. All right, everything's back where it's supposed to be. A little grease I need to clean up. Little grease I need to clean up from, yeah, there underneath. But all of this snapped back in. Everything was plugged back in where it needed to be. So we're happy. And again, both actuators turned like they were supposed to.
You grip the road securely. The remarkably agile Aurora. You get inside it, it gets inside you. And now you can get inside the 2001 Aurora.